Series 1 of Doctor Who is plenty of people's favourites. And if you'd asked me why a few days ago, I would have said something like, Series 1 of Doctor Who is very much aimed at children. It's always been a family show, right? Parents and kids watch together, adults can watch it, kids can watch it by themselves. And that sort of shifted over the years, but Series 1 is very much like, it is being primarily written so 10 to 12-ish year olds can understand it. I'm not an expert. That's kind of a guess. But it is much more of a kid's show than it was ever in the modern edition. And so bits of it, it's extremely morally simplistic. The stories are extremely simple. So the chances are a lot of people who think that Series 1 was the best series are doing so out of nostalgia. So that's what I would have said. And I would have been wrong to say that, which is real nice. I like being wrong about this sort of thing. So my spouse and I continued watching Doctor Who. We watched The Long Game and Father's Day, and they were both really good, which I wasn't expecting. The Long Game in particular is very interesting because it's a Russell T Davies episode that does very good like story fundamentals. And it tells us a certain amount of where Russell lost his way in the modern era to a certain extent. In The Long Game, they arrive on a space station. The Doctor expects it to be a certain way, and it isn't. It's different. It's more squalid, it's run down, it's hyper-capitalist, etc., etc. And so they do some investigating, like the premise is set up, right? Something is wrong. And we see Simon Pegg giving an excellent antagonist performance where he's like being a overseer going, I'm being evil, whatever. So they've set up the premise, something's wrong. They do some investigating. There's a subplot with the character they picked up in the previous episode, Dalek, where he's being a self-interested little shit. So they do some investigating and they find that heat is coming from the top floor and it's radiating down into the rest of the satellite, which is why the rest of the satellite's really uncomfortably hot. So they do some more investigating. They wind up at the top and they find that the monster who lives on the top floor of the satellite generates a lot of heat and needs to be kept cool. So they take all the heat from the monster, vent it down to the rest of the satellite, and then stops that happening. The monster overheats and explodes. It is not a complex story, but it is a good one. We start with a premise, which has some questions, and the questions then get answered. It really sounds like I'm presenting a very low bar, but we do have to remember that many of Russell's episodes since then, including 73 Yards and, Ruby Sunday's whole mystery, very much didn't clear that bar. I would call The Long Game a really solid 8 out of 10. Like, this isn't going to be anyone's favourite episode of Doctor Who, probably, but it is good. Like, capital G good. There are a few dodgy effects, like the Jaggerfest looks bad. But who gives a shit, right? Dodgy effects can't ruin something by themselves. Most of the time, I think. If everything about something is good, and there is an effect for the monster that doesn't work, like, it'll put a bit of a negative spin on it, but it can't ruin it. Father's Day is really fucking good. Father's Day is like 10 out of 10 good. And it's interesting because Father's Day doesn't exactly have a story. It does. I'm being a bit reductive, but Father's Day is very much, we set up a premise, which is Rose saves her dad's life in the past. And because Rose and the Doctor were there twice, it creates a time problem and some little monsters show up. And this forces the cast to hide in a church, and then the bulk of the episode takes place in a church where Rose learns a lot about her family, and Rose now has to grapple with who her parents were. But the majority of the episode is the writer has put these characters in a situation, let's see what they do. It's very slow, it's very character focused, but it's fucking enthralling. I cried like a baby at the climax. Damn, mate. And so, when people say that Series 1 of Doctor Who is their favourite, I can see what they mean now. Because the second Slitheen episode was also like 10 out of 10 good. It had some problems. It had the attitude to fat people was, look, kids, let's point and laugh at these silly fat people who fart all the time and are all kind of unpleasant, which isn't ideal. Moff did a similar thing in a few places, like Bill's first episode, and unfortunately, nowhere near as bad, but in The Empty Child, Moff's first episode of the Doctor Who run. So it has some problems. The cliffhanger that Aliens of London ended on, where the Doctor has like an electrocution thing on him at the end of the first episode, he just takes that off and sticks it on a Slitheen. It's a weak way to break a cliffhanger, but, you know. It has one of the best scenes in all of Doctor Who, where the Doctor is talking to Harriet Jones and Rose and trying to work out what the Slitheen's weakness is.
If we're going to find their weakness, we need to find out where they're from. Which planet? So, judging by their basic shape, that narrows it down to 5,000 planets within travelling distance. What else do we know about them? Information.
They're green.
Yep, narrows it down.
A good sense of smell.
Narrows it down.
They can smell adrenaline.
Narrows it down.
The peak technology.
Narrows it down.
The spaceship in the Thames, you said slipstream engine?
Narrows it down.
And it's just really nice to have deduction being such a crucial part of why our heroes win, especially because Russell would go on to just use a lot of Deus Ex Machina later on. A thing I thought when watching Moffat's first episode, The Empty Child, was going to that after Father's Day was really interesting, because Father's Day is so slow and character focused, and The Empty Child is so quick and tightly edited and plot focused. And it did make me go, in Moffat's era, we never really got episodes that are that slow and character focused as we did in Father's Day. The closest we got was the episode where 12 was trapped in the torture fortress, and it's just him and the walking monster, and he's trying to break through the crystal wall, right? That is not even particularly slow. And it is more character focused because it's all about 12's grief about Clara and stuff. But I think they're very different beasts, right? And so I really appreciated having Father's Day and The Empty Child in one series. Like tonal variance in approach to episodes. One is slow character focused, one is tightly edited story focused. Like, that is nice. So it's a shame that we didn't really get that again after series 1. And so, like, if Russell T Davies's style of Doctor Who was your favourite style, you preferred that to Moffat, I can see why series 1 would be your favourite series, because if my memory is correct, and if I've learned anything from this experiment, it often isn't, Russell's episodes have kind of never been this good again. I still really disagree that when people say Moffat can't do overarching storytelling, they are just wrong if they think that Russ can, because the overarching story of series 1 is occasionally they see Bad Wolf somewhere, and that comes back in the finale. Like, there is an overarching character arc for both the Doctor and Rose. That's true. There are character arcs, but there isn't an overarching story. It's just they go to some places and some stuff happens and their characters develop. It's nice. It's not a story. You could randomly miss episodes 2, 6, 5, and 7. I don't know which ones those are. And, like, still basically follow it, which does heavily imply there isn't actually much of an overarching story going on. It's just occasionally the words Bad Wolf show up and they hand wave what that is in the finale. But I haven't watched the finale, Reese. I haven't rewatched the finale. I might be completely wrong about that. But yeah, I seriously suspect that if you put the overarching episodes of Series 1 and the overarching episodes of Series 5 next to each other, there would be no comparison. Series 5 is just better. Anyway, in terms of overarching story, in my opinion, Dalek has only got worse since I rewatched it. I had those two specific criticisms a few days back. More have showed up in my brain. Like, the crucial thing is the Dalek isn't fucking scary. So in one of the early bits after the Daleks escaped, it's sort of trundling down a corridor, and there are guards at either end, and they start shooting at it from both ends. It's a bad idea. They're going to hit each other. But, like, the Dalek shoots one person at one end of the corridor, turns around real slow, shoots someone at the other end, turns again, and it's like, and none of the soldiers, like, dive for cover or run, and they all just get picked off real slow. And Rose and Adam, who's the semi-companion, the fake-out companion, they run up the stairs, and the Dalek, like, is following them. They go, oh, it's okay, we've run up the stairs, the Dalek can't follow us. And, like, Rose, it's an alien robot. You've seen it, like, gliding along the floor. Why would you assume that an alien robot would be stuck by stairs? And yeah, it's supposed to be a twist that the Dalek can fly, but the Dalek has been able to fly. The Dalek can fly in Sylvester McCoy's series. And so, like, the Dalek isn't scary, in my opinion. Like, the empty child in Moffat's episode, goddamn, that's scary. Still. And, like, you can say that it's a kid's show, it shouldn't be that scary. Like, it's scary enough. But I would say the characters don't take, like, any serious steps to save their lives. Soldiers don't duck for cover. They don't, like, try to get away from this machine that's gunning down their friends. So, like, the Dalek isn't particularly scary. And so, for me, the moral core of the Dalek show doesn't work because of the ending where they cheat and Rose tells it to kill itself. And it's not scary. So, like, it kind of fails on every metric I could, like, use for it. It kind of fails on its own terms. I have also thought that I know after Moff's episode, we've got the episode where the Slitheen comes back, and they do that kind of quite nice, what do we do with the alien after they've been defeated, right? And I'm sort of not looking forward to that episode, because I know Russell does a fucking Deus Ex Machina to get out of the question. And he also presents a false dichotomy, which is we either let her go or we take her home to be executed. Like, there will be other things you could have done with her. Anyway, I need to rewatch the episode, but my point is, they shouldn't have done that episode. They should have done exactly the same, like, principle, but with the Dalek. So the Dalek lives at the end of the Dalek episode, and then in episode 9 or whatever it is, maybe 10, they encounter the Dalek, and he's working with UNIT. And if they really need to kill him, they can kill him at the end of that episode. So, like, the Dalek sacrifices himself to stop whatever problem has arisen, right? It's just, it's disappointing that they actually came really close to having Dalek be a really amazing episode, because it only needed a few changes here and there. But as it is, I don't think it's very good. It's slow, it's not scary, and it presents a moral position that it doesn't follow through on, and sort of cheats to... It's very good at, like, making it seem like it's being morally complex and deep, but, like, the moment you start thinking about it, no, though. Whenever I do content about Doctor Who, I feel as if I am falling into this pattern of saying Moffat good, Russell bad. And I don't like that pattern. I really, really loved Series 1 when I first watched it, and for years later. And then, like... I loved Doctor Who, like, on and off until Moff came back and, like, took over, and then I really loved, like, most of it. So it is really nice to be going back and kind of falling in love with the series again, not least because it, like, it's just really nice to be wrong about stuff, you know? It's nice to be wrong about stuff in this way, where you think something is bad, or you think something's going to be bad, and it surprises you, and it's really good. Like, I was convinced Mad Max Fury Road was going to be shit. I was convinced Dune, the film, was going to be shit, because I'd read the book. And I was completely wrong, and I'm really, really happy about that, because, like, I get to be surprised by how much I got captured by Dune, Fury Road, Furiosa, and now Series 1 of Doctor Who. Like, my spouse and I started off rewatching it, like, as an experiment, because we rewatched River Song's last episode, over Christmas. And we were like, why don't we do that? We haven't rewatched it. Oh yeah, we rewatched The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, which I remembered as being shit. And we rewatched it and went, this is pretty good. Like, it's not great, but it's nowhere near as bad as I remembered it. So it is really nice to have my own memory challenged and to be watching something and to feel stuff, you know, and to just be excited again. And it's got problems, but like most of the time the problems don't particularly matter. So yeah, I'm going to carry on and I'm excited. And if anyone has been thinking about doing this sort of thing, going back and rewatching stuff, I can really recommend rewatching series 1 of Doctor Who. It's not got a great start. Rose, the episode is fine. The next episode's The End of the World, which is fine. It sort of is kind of Russell T Davies's worst writing qualities, in that there's just a lot of nonsense happening for no real reason. The world building doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense. The villain has motivation, but I'm not particularly convinced by any of it. It's just kind of nonsense, and Russell's going off vibes, and the only good thing about it is the interplay between the Doctor and Rose. Billie Piper does a really amazing job at, like, communicating how Rose is feeling at that time. The next episode, The Unquiet Dead, is quite close to being actually bad. I don't really have anything good to say about it. The performances are good. Simon Callow's good as Charles Dickens, but that's kind of it. Like, the story's crap. Episode 4, Aliens of London, is not great either. But then, World War III is fantastic. Dalek's okay. And then, yeah, Long Game, good. Father's Day, very good. Empty Child, very good. Like, yeah, I recommend it. The only thing I want to wrap up with is because, like, we go back to Dalek and we can, like, briefly revisit H. Bomber Guy's bullshit essay, Sherlock is Garbage and Here's Why, is because I continue to be astonished by how much bullshit is in Sherlock is Garbage and Here's Why. Because I remember clearly a clip from that where he says,
in the first series, which is still my favourite, they would have the Doctor do something shitty like torture a Dalek, and he would have to confront himself that episode and get better as a person.
In Dalek, the Doctor is not torturing the Dalek.
I know what you deserve. Exterminate.
We see someone torture the Dalek, and the Doctor, very specifically, doesn't do that. He says, I'm going to kill you, and then he pulls on some electricity things to kill the Dalek, and then they bundle the Doctor out of the room, and the torturer starts torturing the Dalek again, crucially by not electrocuting it, by, like, drilling into it. The show demonstrates what torture is, and what the Doctor tries to do, execute the Dalek, which is different. And it just really amuses me that even with episodes that H. Bomber Guy, like, claims to love, he gets quite important details wrong about. Yeah, he clearly doesn't know these episodes anywhere near as well as he thinks he does, and he didn't rewatch them for the show. He's just gone, oh yeah, that I remember that's what happened, therefore that's what happened. It just amused me. Anyway. Bye.